4,000 years ago, they described depression, not as sadness, but as something that took hold of you. They called it the hand of a ghost. In ancient Mesopotamia, mental illness wasn't ignored. It was diagnosed, recorded, treated, and what they wrote sounds strangely familiar today.
The patient file describes a devastating state of decline. They are suffering from crippling insomnia, a total loss of appetite, and severe physical exhaustion. Most alarmingly, they are gripped by an intense, paralyzing fear that leaves them unable to leave their bed. The medical notes identify the specific triggers for this breakdown. The patient recently endured complete financial ruin, followed closely by the sudden deaths of several family members. If a person presented this exact cluster of symptoms today, a modern psychiatrist would diagnose them with severe reactive depression brought on by acute trauma. But this clinical profile did not come from a modern hospital. It was recorded by a physician in ancient Mesopotamia nearly 4,000 years ago. This specific case is preserved on a clay document known to archaeologists as tablet BAM 234. While we often treat mental illness as a unique challenge of the modern world, this text proves that clinical depression is a documented biological reality that ancient empires actively worked to treat. Ancient Mesopotamia was an advanced civilization with formalized legal codes and massive urban infrastructure. That organization extended directly to their healthcare. Their medical libraries were vast. Professional scribes meticulously tracked thousands of patient symptoms, suspected causes, and treatment outcomes across generations of medical practice. These records include detailed accounts of psychological distress, documenting symptoms of anxiety, obsession, and depression, alongside physical injuries. These physicians engineered a sophisticated system for psychiatric care, despite having no concept of neurochemistry, brain anatomy, or even the existence of the human brain. Lacking a modern biological framework did not stop the Mesopotamians from developing a highly structured, holistic system for managing the mind. Because the Mesopotamians did not locate consciousness inside the skull, they believed the mind existed in the physical core of the body. They utilized a concept called the libu, a term referring to the physical heart, or the insides, as the absolute seat of human thought and emotion. This diagram shows their model of the mind. To diagnose severe distress, the medical texts use specific linguistic coordinates. They describe a patient suffering from libu hapu, literally heartbreak, or shapalu, a low heart. By orienting sadness downward into the chest and stomach, the ancients demonstrated an understanding that psychological trauma triggers very real, psychosomatic bodily pain. Lacking a biological explanation for chemical imbalances, Mesopotamian doctors attributed invisible psychological pain to supernatural forces. A distressed patient would receive a diagnosis such as being struck by the hand of a ghost or suffering from the anger of a personal god. While the labels were rooted in myth, the clinical observations recorded by the scribes followed a strictly empirical logic. The medical texts linked these ghostly attacks to specific real-world triggers, noting they consistently appeared after a patient endured severe stress, grief, or social isolation. This approach shows that while their terminology was supernatural, their observation of how trauma impacts a patient's mental state was consistent with modern clinical practice. Managing a condition like a low heart required a multidisciplinary medical team. The first specialist was the ASU, who functioned as the physical doctor and pharmacist. The ASU treated the physical manifestations of depression, using salves, oils, and bandages to address psychosomatic exhaustion. The second specialist was the Ashipu, an exorcist who served as a psychological counselor to treat the mind. The Ashipu utilized incantations and guided rituals, such as lifting clay figurines, to symbolize and encourage the uplifting of the patient's low heart. This tag-team approach functioned as a combination of physiological care and an early form of cognitive behavioral therapy. This psychiatric understanding was encoded directly into Babylonian law. This monument is the Code of Hammurabi. It contains specific legal protections for citizens suffering from psychological distress or mental confusion. The law mandated that families and temples provide continuous care for those experiencing a mental break. By treating mental illness as a communal responsibility, Mesopotamian society established that psychological pain was a public priority rather than a private burden. Modern medicine often isolates the mind and body into separate disciplines, treating them as disconnected systems. The ancient texts suggest that healing requires addressing physical symptoms, psychological trauma, and cultural context simultaneously. The case of the patient on tablet BAM 234 confirms that the struggle with anxiety, depression, and heartbreak has remained a constant throughout human history. The drive to recognize psychological pain and the effort to care for those whose hearts have become low is as old as civilization itself.
History is never just black and white. So where do you stand? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe for more. New videos every week.